So I'm not going to say much about Roadblock. I did meet the machine during the UCU strike last Wednesday, and it looks so much fun. I'd really like to have a go on it, but we can talk about that later. So I'll hand over to Aidan, Daisy, and Lewis.
Roadblock Soundsystem, that's us. I'm not going to say much. So to start off, Aidan's going to talk you through DIY bike power and what we do within DIY bike power, and all this little bit of technical stuff, but not too much. So try to stay awake through it. Then I'm going to be following up with a conversation about music within activism and activist spaces and events. And then Daisy is going to be talking about our regenerative culture. And then at the end, we're just going to do a quick wrap up with where we think we're going to end up going in the future. And we're going to lead straight into a little video that will give you some background, and then we'll get going. So Aidan, if you wouldn't mind.
Roadblock began in climate activism. Myself and two friends had built a sound system to use at climate events. After a brief chat at the back of a meeting about how Extinction Rebellion Leeds would spend its funds, we sold our idea of making a completely bike-powered sound system to the group. Everyone said yes, and 2 weeks building in a barn later, we had the largest tricycle anyone had ever thought to make. And it was causing havoc in central London. We lasted a good few days, rolling between tent cities in Westminster, London Bridge, playing reggae dub and amplifying Scottish poets. However, Roadblock was impounded by the police in St James's Park. We were promised it would be released. When we recovered it, it was looking worse for wear, and it was mid-COVID. But when I was asked to bring it out to an event, I posted asking if anyone was able to help. The community in Leeds came out to get Roadblock back on its wheels. It was sanded, welded, hammered, painted. Good thing it was heavy farm tech, because otherwise I don't think it would have survived it. As a final touch, it was covered in art by local painters, students and activists. Since this, we've grown and developed from an idea into a whole community. Our resource is empowering agenda-driven community groups with our vibrant infrastructure, and also in holding spaces which are accessible for both learning and for engagement. We have a silly invention, and we spread peace and we spread noise.
Since that time, it's been taking leaps and bounds. We're quite a large team. There's about 8 or 9 core members, are people who are really into the bicycling part of it. There are some people who are really into the activism side, and then there's people who are just into their thing. And there's always a space for anyone with their own little bit of passion and fun. Aidan, who's going to be following on from me later on this week, he's actually going to be teaching the rest of the team about how to do live sound mixing, so that if we are an event and we need someone to step in, then all of us will be a bit more ready to do it. And that's something that we do regularly, just to make sure that everyone in the team is developing their skills. I'm going to hand swiftly over to Aidan.
Cool. Hi everybody. So yeah, my name's Aidan. Thank you for the introduction, Lewis. So I'll just give a very quick background to me. So I've been a climate activist for 4 years or so now. My main focus was on sort of the financial sector, so looking at banks financing and the financial sector's financing of fossil fuels and stuff. Currently, I'm actually a master's student at the University of Leeds studying ecological economics, but I did my undergrad in audio engineering, which has kind of set me up quite well as an activist and audio person to get involved in this bizarre project, which I only just joined since coming to Leeds just a couple months ago. So it's really exciting for me as well. So I'll try and give us a quick idea of how bike power works. I'm not an engineer in the sense of a mechanical engineer, but I can give it my best part. So the main idea and the main part is that we take a a motor, an electric motor, and sort of use it backwards. So a motor works by putting electrical current and electrical energy into wires that are within a magnetic field, and when that happens, a mechanical force is experienced on the wires, and then you create motion. And so when you flip that around, you then are moving the wires inside the magnetic field yourself, and that induces a current and electrical energy into those wires, and so you're producing electricity. Yes, so that's the crux of how we create the power within the bike system. And then once you've got there, so you have your human, you're pedaling the pedals that are attached to the motor that you're using backwards. So you're pedaling and turning the coils of wire within that motor, creating energy. And then with that energy, you can then take that energy either into a storage, so like a battery, or you can use a transformer which holds the energy just for a short amount of time, and then it can go directly to the application. Yeah, I think that's as far as we need to go into the actual powering. I hope that kind of gives an idea of what's going on, but the main point is that we've got an electric motor using it backwards, and therefore we create electrical energy which we can use for ourselves. So specifically for Roadblock, what we have is two positions on the back of Roadblock where people can pedal, and then these pedalings are turning some alternators which go which are creating electrical energy. And then we tend to use two batteries, and the batteries that we use are sort of like big leisure batteries, typically from like a car or from a boat. And we have two batteries, one that we charge and then one that we draw from. So you can charge and draw one battery at the same time, but it gets a little bit complicated. And also having two batteries makes it a bit more flexible, in that if the position that you need the battery to be is a bit awkward, then you can have our big machine in one place charging one battery, and then take the other battery to where it needs to be. And so it just gives us a bit more flexibility when we're out and about. And then specifically, sort of audio wise, what we're working with is we tend to, we have available to us, we have two top speakers creating sort of the mid and high frequencies, and then we have a couple of subwoofers which are very, very heavy. And so we tend to really decide on what we're taking based on how far we have to cycle the machine, because it's quite heavy, and also how hilly it might be, because it is, again, very, very heavy, all the equipment. But yeah, and with the front of the thing, the front of Roadblock is an old moped scooter that we used to that we've welded onto the frame and used to steer. Yes, and so really what we've found, this technology and what this machine has enabled us to do is really end reliance on two sort of critical things. One is sort of needing to be next to a plug socket, and then also having to rely on big generators. So specifically, we found this really useful when for marches and protests and just general outdoor activities or outdoor concerts and stuff where power is inaccessible, and generally that would be filled by a generator, which can be expensive and is obviously less sustainable. I've got a little video here of an example of the kind of stuff that we've been helping with. This was actually just last week, out with the staff of the university. Which was an amazing event to help with and to support, and because there's thousands of staff from both universities in Leeds marching all the way from the university campuses down to into the outdoor town hall, I think it was. Yeah, and again, it's just an example of where, you know, we're able to support these kind of things, where without us trying to create that energy on a march is very difficult, because I think I've been on a fair few marches where it gets kind of quiet and you need kind of like one or two people very brave to start chanting, or it all kind of becomes a bit quiet. So us being there sort of takes the pressure off of individuals and just allows it to have a bit more energy. And so a good example of where we've really sort of pushed ourselves with this was during the COP26 rallies. There was all around the world in lots of different cities, there was a day of sort of solidarity at the time of the COP26 conferences. And so Roadblock was providing the power for the big rally in Leeds, and we were working almost all day doing like various bands, quite a lot of speeches and music, and we were really having to sort of push ourselves and push the technology. So we were drawing from one battery and having to recharge the next one straight away, and then quickly swap them over as soon as we could. But the other incredible aspect of this is that because it's so fun and engaging, is that we had members of the public come in and work with us and start charging the batteries for themselves. So you see on the picture on the left, neither of those people are in our team. They were just people that were there and wanting to engage with us and be part of Roadblock and be part of making the event happen. And so this brings me on to sort of the final point that I have about Roadblock, is that you know, it is also a really educationally engaging system as well, because you know, because it's so attractive and fun, people want to come on and learn and be a part of what's happening. And we have on the right hand picture, you can see just sort of by the pedals on the right hand side, we have a little voltmeter, which means when you're turning the pedals, you can actually see yourself producing some electricity. And we've also fitted lights, so you can see also the lights coming on. And so it creates, you know, more engaging, where you can just understand directly that you are creating the electricity. And so we find like lots of kids want to get involved and get on it. And because it's engaging for the kids, then the parents can come along as well, and that prompts us talking to the parents and then wanting to learn sort of more about energy production, and sort of looking at this more broadly when we are out in the community talking about what we see energy being in the future, especially given, you know, our current you know, cost of energy crisis. And the communities are really like hungry for community powered energy. And obviously we're not saying that Roadblock is about to be able to start powering, you know, whole cities or little villages or anything. But what it can do is start, you know, creating those links between communities and energy, and start, you know, really start the process of learning about, you know, how we can, you know, reharness energies within communities. Yes, I think that's all I have. I think Lewis is going to speak again next.
I am. But first, I'm just going to say that's absolute sacrilege to suggest that Roadblock wouldn't power entire villages. You're just not pedaling hard enough.
Fair enough.
No, but yeah, no. So I will be talking now, and I'm going to talk a bit about effective activism and how do you reach that. But I'm talking solely through the lens of music through activism, and how music interacts with activism and connection and that sort of thing. So meaningful activism, to me, is creating change, and that is achieved through changing small parts or parts of someone's life. Whether it be an opinion that you're changing or an action within someone's life that you're changing, it's largely the same thing in terms of how you're engaging and what the conversations look like. And what the conversations look like within activism is that you have a second, a moment, and in that second, you have to communicate absolutely everything. All of why they need to change their life, all of what your agenda is, all of why you're the right person to tell them where your agenda is. It all needs to come across in a moment, and that's all that you have most people for. So the standards for activism are really high, right? Because before you can have a conversation, you have to make sure that there are no opportunities for them to discard your opinion for a reason such as hypocrisy or thoughtlessness on part of the event coordinator. So those are all things that need to happen beforehand. So let's imagine that you and your organization, members of the crowd, are blocking somebody's path, right? You're blocking somebody's path who's traveling down their specific track, going about their day. You've only got a second before they look up and either smile or frown, right? The best option is actually for them to be surprised and then to smile, but we'll get on to how you get that one later on. For now, we need to make sure that it's a smile. And you get that through color and, you know, having a dynamic presence, right? You can have people who are, you know, outreach wizards who can connect with anyone about anything, who can give their spiel and people will just want to sit there and listen to them because they're charismatic. You can have a massive crowd, right? Something that just speaks to the primal human, right? You're just like, oh, I want to see what the big crowd's doing. Or you can have banners that are immaculately painted that outline all of your points perfectly. And you just need to see them, you understand what's happening, and you understand. Whilst all of these things are opportunities for someone to see you and to think, ah, this is a good thing. At the end of the day, you are in their way. You are a barrier in their path and you've caused some disruption. So you're losing 50, 60% of people just on that. Now, music is the thing that sets that fire of curiosity going in humans. And suddenly, instead of people angrily looking up, seeing that, you know, they've stubbed their toe on this new thing that's in their way, they're sort of turning around from further up the street. Someone's taken out their AirPods, right? A family is coming out of a doorway and instead of turning one way, they're listening and turning the other way. Within that environment, right, where people are turning and seeing you, that's where you can make connections, irrespective of the agenda that you're bringing. There's an opportunity for you to engage those people in the space they've chosen to come to. Once they've made a choice to come into your space, you're aligned most of the way. And music changes what is a barrier into a destination. And that's the connection that I feel from music and activism. So to give an example, to sort of flesh that out a bit more of how that works. For some of you, you won't know Leeds, but there's a place called Briggett in Leeds, and it's the largest street in Leeds. It's enormous. It's probably, I'm not good at my guesstimates, but I think it's 20 meters wide, and it'll be like a few hundred meters long. Janet's nodding. I was not too wrong. And we were given that space. We were invited to that space by a collegiate of local environmental groups and Leeds City Council to welcome a group of Spanish walkers. And this was in October of 2021. And the other thing that was happening in October 2021 was COP26. And these Spanish walkers were in fact on a massive mission to walk from southern Spain all the way to Glasgow. And they were taking days, weeks to do this. And they were arriving to Leeds. However, we had a benefit because on that same night in Leeds, it was Light Night, which is pretty much the largest thing that the council organises, where they invite artists to create light fixtures and to do performance, and it's a massive night, and there are thousands and thousands of people in Leeds, and it is just such an incredible environment. So we were helped a little bit, but I'm going to talk about how we held a space in that night and how we welcomed them and the connection of that, the function of it. So the Spanish walkers were walking to COP26. They had walked for hundreds of miles, right? They had another 180 or so to go, if you know the distance between Leeds and Glasgow. But to set it up, we spoke to a lot of people. We spoke to set designers, someone from Dark Horse Theatre School in Huddersfield, which is a Down syndrome friendly theatre group, helped us to design a set. And then we built that in the week along with somebody else who joined. And so as that, we added lights, we added colourful infrastructure. At the event, we, as I said, had a significant amount of space that we needed to cover. And so we wanted to make sure that the musicians that were coming were people who could fill that big atmosphere. And so, oh, hello, just seeing you join. Lovely to see you again. So as we were at light night and we were waiting for these Spanish walkers, we were picking our artists for who would be filling the space. And so we had some people who were, rap artists and poets. And then, we had this professional climate cellist called Sarah Smout. We had Leeds' oldest and largest choir, the Leeds Philharmonic Chorus. And then at the end, we had a 6-piece jazz funk band. So it was really wide, right? Massive variance in the people who were filling that space. And, usually you might think, why would you do that? However, all those choices of music were informed by the variance in who would be there. And Light Night isn't going to attract one sort of person. It's all people from Leeds. It's families, it's individuals, it's all of the students, and it's all the people who come from different parts of Leeds into the city, because it is one of those massive nights. So we didn't want to favour any particular part of the crowd. And that's why we had such a massive variance in the artists that were there. So on the night, as I said, we were helped by there being several thousand more people than usual in Leeds. However, as we were playing and talking and entertaining, right, the Spanish walkers had a meal. They had a meal with the Lord Mayor and a lot of other officials. And after that, I was on the phone to a sleeper agent I had in the crowd, and we were coordinating when they would arrive. And there was this crowd that had, throughout the day, throughout the evening, been gathering. And as Aidan said, when children see Roadblock, they are, that little feral spark in them goes up, and they are crawling all over it. And so there were people powering it. The new lights that we'd put up, they get brighter the harder you pedal. They were, glaring at them whilst wheeling it around. And we were engaging with the parents in the crowd with some it's good to have a variance of people. So we have a lot of people who are good at science communication, but that comes at a lot of different stages, right? So there are some people who are interested in the physics, right? As we just touched on there. Some people are really interested in cycling. So they want to see how it all fits together, what the mechanics of it are. And then there are people who are, it's a new thing to them, right? And they want to understand the root of it. So that was going on, and the crowd was just growing and growing as the evening went on. And then came the moment of truth. And we'd held this space for a couple of hours. People had been growing, the crowd had been growing. And then we got the call saying, we're coming, right? And as the Spanish walkers arrived at the bottom of Briggate, a crowd that filled Briggate parted in the middle. And these Spanish walkers who really had no idea what city they were walking to from one to the next. They were bedraggled. They had walked 20-something, 30 miles that day. They walked up the street, and it must have been mad, because hundreds of people parted the way. And at the end of this long procession, there was a massive choir singing a Spanish lullaby. And everyone clapped. And I'm sure the crowd, they will have known vaguely what was going on, but it is just one moment, but it's symbolic for me that an attractive environment, an environment that you want to be in, can encourage people to stay and to connect with things that they wouldn't otherwise have connected with. And I'm under no illusion that that was forged by the music and by the performance that was there. And without that, there wouldn't have been hundreds of people to clap the Spanish walkers and make Leeds the city that they remember when they go back and they talk about walking across all of Spain. So it was big for me. And I think that it was because of the music intrinsically that it was such a success. So I'm going to take a drink because I have a habit of just going and going. But my last thing that I'm going to talk about is about our provision, what it is that we do in Leeds. So I started off at the beginning by saying that as a group, we do a lot of skill sharing, and that's very true because we want to develop, oh yeah, that's good, that's perfect. We want to develop these shared skills. We want to make sure that everyone in the team can provide a resource to those that we go and work with. So at a basic level, what we can provide is high quality sound, professional sound engineers, vibrant infrastructure, and as social events organizers ourselves, we can network people into the wide network of performers that we know who want to support social and environmental causes. So it in essence means that a local organization for an event to work just need to be there at the place they've chosen, because we can turn up with everything needed, all the power, all the sound, all the feeling that comes from having a bizarre invention. And it's that bizarre invention, I'm sure some of you have guessed, that gives you the surprise and then the smile. Because you need to have something that no one's ever seen before, which is hard, obviously, right? Usually you have to go to an entirely different country and go off the road, and then you see something that you've never seen before. So that's that optimal connection, is just sort of like getting someone to sort of take a step back from, from where they are. So in terms of the nitty-gritty of how we support, how we provide the help that we do, we have a scaling model of what it is that we bring. So that is linked to what it is that the group expects will be their crowd, will be their venue, and we can choose something that fits them. So we have some small speakers that have an internal battery that they have a handle, and you drag them along, and they have some radio microphones. So you can talk, you can have one guitar and a singer, and you can basically just wheel it around anywhere. So if you're going around a building, if you're going upstairs all the time, it's fine, it works, right? And that is just easy, we just give it to them, that's fine. We don't typically charge like activist organizations for anything that we use, but sometimes we will get them to sign something saying, if it is lost or if it gets broken, then we'll help to cover the costs. After that, we would come along with someone from the team, and they would set up the speakers, the big speakers that we have, along with the performance equipment. And that means that we could have DJs, we could have anything that we want, you know, massive bands, anything really. And what we would do is we would either plug into a source of power, or we would bring along batteries that we had charged beforehand. So there is a limit on how long those events can go for, but our batteries have no problem currently doing 4 hours or so, which is most things. And the last thing that we can do is we can turn up with the bike, with everything, with speakers on it, with our staging, our outreach, our sound, and our power, and just do the whole lot. And that scales to sort of how many people you're expecting and what is the provision that you need for your event to be the success that you want from it. That's what we want. That's what we bring along. Let me just find myself. Yes, and on occasion we'll work alongside other organizations like Open Source Arts, who can help us provide things like marquees and larger staging, right? But we're very networked into events. So in essence, we are sort of, and not meaning to blow our own horn too much, but we are an ultimate in making public outreach and activism accessible. Because by taking the power production off grid, we're ending reliance on large organizations who either assist with calling a favor, or with great time investment, or with a high cost. And especially since some groups are required to put on events at very short notice, us being able to arrive with all of that means that it's actually deeply accessible to a lot more people than these events otherwise would be, which is a massive thing. And that enables, you know, young groups, people who are unfunded, to still put on an impressive display publicly. However, with our regenerative culture, which is what we're going to move on to quickly, we as a group take steps to be accessible for those who have a reduced capacity. So there are a lot of organizers who are at university, who are still developing their skill set, who are neurodiverse, and they don't necessarily have the capacity to put on the event that should happen. And we as an organization are aware of that, and the steps that we take within our own space to make sure that we are friendly to neurodiversity, we extend out into the community. And if there's an organization that needs help, we'll make sure that we're making adaptations to how we work so that the event works, and we'll fill the gaps that are needed. So that can be anything from, you know, organizing something to happen with the authorities. It could be stage management or outreach. And it means that everyone has an equal ability to have their voice heard. We don't tend to work to provide what, you know, people want. It's more what people need, and we can bring along sort of anything, right? But within events, it needs to be sustainable, right? So we do sense check when we're working with an organization, what it is that they're looking to get out of it and what we're looking to get out of it, and so that we are maximizing our effort. And as our capacity grows, our ability to support will also grow, to bring these activist spaces to life with music and performance. So that's all I had. I'm going to hand on to Daisy, who's going to talk a bit about our internal. Oh, there's that slide. Give us a second. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That's our Halloween event that we just did. We ran around the estate in Headingley, handing out sweets and a few business cards to families who were trick-or-treating. But yeah, I'll hand on to Daisy now.
Hi, so I'm going to talk a bit about regenerative culture within our group, and just a quick background on me. So I began with like activism and kind of arty stuff. So I started activism about 4 years ago at the beginning of 2019, doing the youth climate marches in my city as part of the wider Fridays for Future movement. And since then, I've been involved in Leeds' climate and social justice community. I also studied fine art, and so that's why I tend to take more of a creative and arty side of a role within the group. So to begin with, I was going to just chat about what we mean when we're talking about regenerative culture within these activist spaces. So regen is really taking care of the people within movements. It's protecting them from burnout, it's protecting them from overworking themselves, and it's embedding a more sustainable working culture within a movement. When you're doing activist work, it can take a big mental toll. You are constantly put under pressure by the moral responsibility of doing all this work, and there's a sense of urgency as you're working, and when you feel the pressure of this crisis you're fighting, it can lead you to wanting to just push yourself and push yourself and push yourself. And regenerative culture is telling you to take time off and to calm yourself and to manage your own capacity. So practically, it can look like doing check-ins at the beginning and the ending of meetings. It's taking care of who's doing what jobs, role swapping, making sure no one's taking on more work than they're capable of. It's having open discussions and running workshops about regeneration and about mental health, and keeping that at the forefront as you're planning and as you're working. It's also having a balance between your work and your social time. It's putting effort into maintaining your support network and maintaining your community and keeping those connections alive as you do this work. And ultimately, as you do regenerative practices, you're strengthening a movement, you're allowing it to go further, and you're keeping it healthy enough to last for the long term, because most of these issues you're fighting, they're not a quick solve. It's not something you can do immediately, and you need to pace yourself so you can keep these campaigns going for years. So, as we've said, Roadblock has come from these activist spaces. It's come from these communities, and our core members have also come from these groups. So when we're making it, we wanted to include these regenerative practices, and it was almost like a subconscious choice to just make sure that we were taking these into our everyday work. We've seen the need for these practices, and we've seen how they can help, but we've also witnessed how they're not doing enough, and how they're not always enough to keep a movement going. And we saw, just like we saw there was a need for sustainable sound in Leeds, there was a need for a regenerative focused community group that can offer support for the already existing organisations within the city. So internally, we have set these structures in place. We have used these lessons we've learned from our activism, and we've taken it further as well. So we have a non-hierarchical structure, and we make our decisions democratically. We ensure that we make time for these reflective conversations and for these open discussions about the work we're doing. We debrief after every event, and we make time to talk about how we're feeling, how we're thinking about the work we're doing, and what we need to focus our time and our energy on. We consciously as well make our meetings and our events less structured. We make them more informal, we make them more relaxed, and I think that makes these spaces more accessible for those with a lower capacity, for those who don't have the energy and the time to come into these very formal, very professional settings. And it means that whilst we're being productive, we can also take a step back, and we can look after ourselves, and we can socialise. It as well creates a nice soft entry point to these activist groups. So if people are new to activism, they can join our group, and they will join our group, and they'll learn how to be in these spaces without the intensity and the pressure, and it means that it's just more accessible for the regular person. All of the events and all of the actions we do, they're always centered around music, around art, and around this community focus. They're social and they're celebratory, and as we're putting these services into the community, we're creating these moments of joy and regeneration, and we're also getting these things back. As much as we offer these services to other people, as we're doing these events, we're getting it back. So being in this group is healing ourselves and being productive, but without taking it away from our day-to-day energy. I think it's very core. Roadblock is fun. It's really stupid, it's daft, it's vibrant, and it's exciting. It's covered in like beautiful art, and it's interactive. And that's not even mentioning like the amount of music and the amount of artists we have. And just like seeing it, it just makes people's day. And it's just really nice to be able to have fun whilst also providing a really valuable service to the community and to our city. So as we have been doing these practices internally, as we've been practicing regenerative culture, we have realised that it can be translated very easily into a wider context. We can bring it into the city, and we can use it in our outreach and our engagement, and we can encourage these behaviours in a wider way to make Leeds a more regenerative place. we've encouraged and we've developed these community networks as we're working, as we're holding these events. We bring in and we find people from all these different areas of our city. We have artists, cyclists, builders, engineers. We've got like musicians and all these different people who all come towards us, are all drawn towards us because they have this joint desire, this joint need, and they see the need for this regenerative and this exciting thing, and they can come together and they can build this community around their need for us and their need for this space outside of work and outside of activism, outside of day-to-day things, where they can just connect with their own community. So sorry, that was a bit rushed. I'm very conscious of time, and I'd love to do some questions at the end. But just as a little thing about how we're planning on keeping regeneration as our centre as we're like moving forward. So next year we've got a series of events happening in association with our city's like park groups, in which we're going to do monthly events where we go to different communities. We have a big bike ride, bringing along Roadblock, and inviting local artists, local performers from these specific small communities around the parks. And we'll have local vendors and things like that. And we're going to create these spaces, and we're going to strive to continue making these spaces where people can reconnect with their community. People can take time out of their day-to-day life and focus on themselves and focus on having fun and enjoying themselves and being generally more regenerative. That's all I've got.
Perfect. Well, I feel as though there's some more slides to come. And do you want to? Yes, here we are. So we've forgotten to show you all of our slides again. Oh no, here it is. Right, our future. That's me. I'm back. Here we are. So as you can see from the talk so far, we're not short of potential things to do, right? There's lots of different tracks we could go down, lots of paths we could follow. And that's why it's important that we have consolidated a plan, right? And so we have a sort of 3-phase concept of what we're going to be doing in Leeds and how we see our growth going, right? So the first of those is what Daisy just spoke about. And that is to consolidate our local presence. And that we're doing by building partnerships with local organizations, by continuing to do support for activists. This series with the parks is going to do a huge amount for our outreach across the city, because so far we've been very much in North Leeds and we'd like to move beyond. So this series with the parks, it's organized with the Parks Forum, and we're going to be partnering with the Friends of organizations to co-produce events in each of their spaces, where we're going to be doing like road confidence and lots of community-based family stuff. Alongside that, we've got an event series at Meanwood Valley Urban Farm, and we're going to keep doing our little fun things like the Halloween event that's back up there, and we're going to all dress as elves at some point in Christmas. If any of you don't have Christmas plans yet, you can all be an elf with us. Some of you might have to come further than others, but the offer's there. So we want really to be an intrinsic part of the community culture of Leeds, right? We want to be a silly little thing that's bounding around that you can go to when you need something. And the future, then the next phases will encourage our ability to do that. The second thing we want to establish a physical base. We want a place that we can actually work out of, right? Because we have a lot of, it's a big machine. There is some workshop space that needs to be had. We need to be able to do repairs. We need to be able to fiddle with it. And more importantly, we need to be able to build and to create new things. So we need a space to do that. We've got a lot of thoughts about what space that could be, but our optimal solution is we want to create a solar garage, which we work out of, so that we can take ourselves entirely off grid. Because to be completely honest, our batteries are sometimes charged using a battery charger. So right now we just don't have capacity to be fully off grid. And that's something that we want in the future. So we want to set up a space where we have the ability to build our stuff and also to charge up everything that we need. When we have this space, then we can also do a different sort of workshop. So we've mentioned at moments that the engagement potential of Roadblock is really high, and that it's something that's striking a chord with a lot of organizations, with a lot of people at the moment. And so our skills as an organization will grow in time as we continue to skill share and to learn new things. And we will be in a position to provide workshops and trainings to different organizations, to communities that want to take themselves a bit off grid, to people who want camper vans. We'll be in a position where we can offer trainings. And when we have a physical base, we'll actually be able to give them out and to hold things and to engage with the community in an educational standpoint as well. So once we have that, once we have our name in the mouths of everyone in Leeds, once we have our own base, we're ready for stage 3, right? Phase 3, the most expressive one, and that is as a platform for new build green tech, right? Using the functional love of Roadblock, right? Because it is something that I deeply love, and everyone in the team grows so fond of, and it's something that will grow in time as we become a larger organization. And it's a perfect standpoint for new tech projects to be built and for frontline resources to sort of be popularized and to reach the grassroots and to get out of the box that new research can sometimes be in. Because it's, for every piece of incredible research that's done and new finds that are created, that are uncovered, it needs to reach the people. And that it's a variance of it's a mixture of organizations that are needed to do that. And we see ourselves as doing the physical outreach part of that for some projects. And we want to engage with organizations that are doing that research and have that infrastructure and that resource in the future. But we know that we need to prepare ourselves to do that. We've already got some plans. We've already got some plans for Roadblock Mark 2, Roadblock Mark 1.5. We've got an idea for a suitcase projector. There's things that are in the pipeline. And once we're established as a group that has its own workshop, its own space, its own staff even, we'll be in a position to create these things and to share them wider. So that's where we're going. And we're going to enable that by becoming an affiliated organization. So we're choosing currently which sort of an organization we'll be. But right now we're an unaffiliated organization, I think we're allowed to be that until we earn a bit too, like £5,000. So we're that for the time being, but we're probably going to be a CIC or a community interest or a community benefit society or something along those lines. But to underpin this other work, we're going to become an organization so that we can start to invest in our resources and in our spaces and in the people that sort of are currently volunteering for Roadblock, so that we can scale up and keep doing what we want to do. Yeah, that is really drawing it to a close. The only other thing that I would add to our future, like where we see ourselves being, is that I don't think that we're an organization that will always be local. I think that the capacity for us to start up a new chapter somewhere else in the world is there. We as an organization can have our ethics, our guidelines, and we can scale to other parts of the world. We can share our designs, we can assist new communities to have some level of off-grid power and control and generate community power through that. So yeah, there's a lot of options, there's a lot of ambition in the team, but that's why we've got these phases, so that we can scale things properly and get us somewhere. So that's us. Thank you all for listening. Oh, there it is. Thank you for listening. Yeah, this has been tremendous
Thank
fun.
you very much. That was really inspiring. I think we'd like to hear more about the suitcase projector, but before we do that, what was I going to say? Yes, I've got a couple of suggestions. One is that you could become partners of CELCE, external partners, which I think would be great.
Wow.
The other is we've got a garage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who does? CELCE does?
No. James and I have got a garage.
All right.
And he's just said, we've got a garage. Whether we can put solar power on it, I don't know, but it would be good if we could. But you can come and have a look at it if you like.
Is he gone to go and take a look now?
No, because it's around the corner. It's not on the house. It would be good if he had. What else was I going to say? Yes, so we'd like to know more about the suitcase projector. And one of the things that we spoke about when I met you, Lewis, was the possibility of taking some of the technology over to somewhere like Oman to do projections and perhaps events. Saeed Bakwer is a great photographer, and he works for Omani television and has done a lot of film work. And I think it would be good if we could get you talking.
Yeah, we'd love that. I'll make sure to bring my engineers though.
I think so. Yes. Yeah. I've got one further question, but I would like you to talk about the suitcase projector, and that is, could we use this power generation to power our house? We are absolutely freezing. I just don't put the heating on. Yeah,
well, I mean, Aidan could give you some specifics on that, but there's a very short answer, and that's probably no.
Oh dear.
However, you can warm yourself up on a bike, and any power that is produced on your site, like within your house, by any green energy, goes into your system before it goes into the grid.
Okay.
So if you added solar powers, if you did have, like perhaps you have an exercise bike, you can wire them up so that it's going into the grid. If you did have that, then it would charge your stuff first. It would power your fridge, it would power your constant supply stuff first.
Yeah.
And then if you produced more than you used, it would go into the grid and you get paid. So it is a good investment. But in terms of powering an entire house, it's beyond just one person cycling, unless you put some serious effort and had some very serious legs on you.
But we could use it for the fridge and the microwave.
Okay, well, microwave's a stretch.
Oh right, okay, the fridge.
I had a go. We were at a training the other day and we tried boiling a kettle. Heating a cup of water. Yeah. And it was about 15 minutes of cycling, and because heating something, it produces a lot of resistance. So when you're pedaling, it depends. You can have it work several ways, but the usual metric is that the more power is needed by the thing that you're powering, the harder it is to cycle. Yeah. So if you are directly powering a fridge, then it's going to be really, really hard to push the pedals.
Yeah. Okay, right. So we can forget about pedaling to heat our house for the moment.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the reason why sound powered stuff is this works quite well is because speakers don't require a lot of power at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, as far as electrical appliances go, speakers don't need an awful lot to get going.
Okay.
Right, the more you pedal, the hotter you get, so you probably don't need any heating.
You missed that bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to pedal while you're working.
That's it.
Could you tell us something about the suitcase projector?
Yes, I can do. Although I will inform you straight away that it is something that has been firmly in the dream state so far. Right? It's unworked. Okay. However, on the team, there are two visual effects artists who work with projection and with like visual displays. And something that they both have been working on is an infrared scanning system that it would attach to a projector, and it would scan whatever relief that you're projecting onto, any wall, any tree, whatever it is. And it would adapt on a software side, the projection that went out so that it was a clean projection on any surface, which means in essence, you can turn up with a projector in a suitcase, in our case, plop it down anywhere, it'll spend a minute scanning the terrain, and then you can project whatever you want. The added part of this would be that we'd be finding a way for that to be powered through some level of green electricity.
Yeah.
So on the team, we have a bit of everything. So we have quite a few bike technicians, and then we have someone who's just returned from building wind turbines in Latin America and is coming up with a concept for a tiny wind turbine that could do some small scale power. We have some people who do solar, but really the machines wouldn't need one thing, right? So the benefit of our things is everything is just built for the function that we see it for. So if we were co-producing a suitcase, then would work out what is the sort of thing that you'd want projected, like what sort of scale would you want the screen to be, and then we'd start doing the calculations on what size of suitcase we'd need, what we'd need to fit into it, and what power solution we'd choose. If it was going to be bike powered, it could be, I've sort of had a conversation with the lead bike guy who knows everything. We just sort of get him in every now and then because he's terribly busy building drones, I think it is. But he thinks it's possible to have a fold-out bike that would come out of the suitcase and sit beside it, and it would run on a quiet electrical motor, which if you heard Roadblock the other day, you would have heard that the motors on it are quite loud, and that's because they're quite powerful. But you can get smaller ones which are better for small power sources. So you could have a fold-out bike. You could also have a hand crank, which is much more size efficient. But the concept is that you would have a suitcase that you could put a stamp on, send somewhere in the world, and it could have on it stories, stuff, and you could just plop it down anywhere in the world and project it without any need for reliance on anything. So it's I think for film, authenticity goes a long way, and I think that this ticks a lot of those boxes. So it's a concept, it's unworked, but the team is in a position to make it a reality.
Yes. I think it would well be worth thinking about this and costing it into a project. Tom, what do you think? You are still there, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a really great idea. And one of the questions I wanted to ask actually was, obviously there's a huge amount of expertise at the University of Leeds. We have colleagues in engineering, we have designers, we have legal experts who might be able to help in things with the setup of the community interest company. I just really wanted to put it out there that, you know, is there specific skills or expertise that you need at the minute, and can we make relevant introductions to try and make a new collaboration happen?
Gosh, Tom. Yes, that all sounds great, all of it. Now, please, thank you. That sounds amazing. Certainly on the legal side, I think that it would be great to get some advice, to be honest, on the current roadblock, because we're uncertain about where it fits, because it's larger than a car, but it is also unpowered, but it is also made by hand, and it weighs half a ton. So it's probably in some very strange category for what sits on roads. So we'd love to get some advice. That'd be really tremendous. And we would also love, I mean, as a group, I'm uncertain to what extent you run projects within the engineering courses, but we'd be very open to doing a bit of co-production with one of the courses where we, show them how to build a thing. And, it might not just suit the engineering course. I mean, I know that you have an events course and lots of other stuff. So, but we're very happy to work and share our builds and our skills and to work alongside. And most certainly the university will have a much deeper level of understanding on these subjects than us, because we are just sort of fumbling our way through happily. So that's a tremendous offer. Thank you.
Yeah,
no worries. And sorry, Dan, just to follow up on that. I think my recommendation, Lewis, would be to do two things. I think you had a really great idea there yourself as well. The first would be to try, kind of draw up some sort of wish list of skills or expertise that you would greatly benefit from. And I'm certainly then happy to take that wish list and kind of think across the university as to which particular departments or staff might be able to support you. And then, yeah, I think your idea around projects involving students is a great one. So I'd try and think of some sort of self-contained projects or initiatives that would support what it is that you're trying to do at Roadblock, but that aren't kind of absolutely pivotal to your central aims, because, you know, then it could be something that does sit alongside everything else that you're trying to accomplish. I mean, do you think that's fair, Janet? Do you think that's a good approach?
Yes, I think that's an excellent approach. Yes, yeah, and we could arrange, like, we could arrange meetings on campus, couldn't we? So John works a lot with ecology and energy, and I was a bit annoyed that he didn't turn up today, but he did have another meeting. He sent his apologies. But he would be a good person to talk to. He's got close contacts with engineering, and has done a lot of work with engineering in South America and in places in Africa and in Indonesia, Tanzania. Yeah. So yes,
he's done a lot of some things like off-grid electricity for Tanzanian villages, things like that.
Gosh, well, I don't quite know what to say. I was already excited coming into the meeting. But I guess I do have a question about CELCE and about your focuses as an organization. So it's, you know, endangered languages, cultures and ecosystems.
Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of those in the UK. So,
we actually have more than you think.
Oh, really? Well, okay. Well, happy to be. Okay, well, I've already started making enemies. But what I mean is that it's obviously a very broad group that works internationally.
Yeah.
And we are currently a very local grassroots organization. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that we're doing, and I sort of want to ask what it is that is the core interest for you. So we have our outreach and our engagement, and there's also the sort of the innovation side and the youth organization that's putting together new stuff. And I just wanted to know what it is that is the drive for that connection.
For me, CELCE, although we've got endangered, for me, CELCE is about localness, local language, local culture, local ecosystems, and how if you take one of those away, the rest suffer. So that localness can be in Oman, in southern Oman, where I work, in Yemen. It can be in the Dales. So remove some of the natural ecosystems around the Dales, you're going to then lose the vocabulary. You're then going to lose the knowledge of how to, say, for example, laying hedges. That's hardly done anymore. So it's this intricate symbiotic relationship between all these things. And for me, the essence is localness, wherever you are.
Thank you.
But different people have different people will approach it from different angles. We have biologists, anthropologists, engineers, geographers, linguists, people who work on culture. So they might, but what we found is that talking to someone who works in a field very different from your own, you suddenly realize how much you've got in common. So like when Tom and I started working together, it's quite a long time ago now, isn't it, Tom? On the Leeds Voices project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
So we work in very different areas. But I certainly saw ways in which we could collaborate and ways in which our work would reinforce each other.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I think provisionally, certainly, we've not had we're having a meeting in about 15 minutes. So you can get an answer quite soon, but provisionally, I'm sure that most people in Roadblock would love to have some level of partnership with CELCE.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
great.
thank you so much for inviting us.
You're very welcome.
If you have any questions for myself, Aidan, or Daisy, we're happy to stay. Although I think I was told to only speak for about an hour, and it's already 15 minutes over that. So
no, that's fine.
It's
absolutely fine as long as people don't have to dash off, but they're quite free to dash off. Does anyone else have a question? Saeed, would you like to ask anything? You can ask in Arabic if you like, and we'll translate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for a wonderful talk. And it's not a question, but I would suggest that you need to transfer this idea to the countryside.
Yeah.
As you asked before, how to power a house. I know maybe to power a house in a city, it could be a bit difficult, but maybe a little cottage or a little house in the mountain, we need to have some ideas how to power that kind of houses in the countryside.
Yeah, it's a very different solution, like you're saying. I think the usage in cities is much higher. You know, I think that farms do survive on one small wind turbine.
Yeah.
And that's actually very common in the UK rurally.
Yeah.
And where we originally built Roadblock, it was all powered on a little windmill.
Really?
Yeah, but those resources haven't made it to the cities, so they're very expensive for the consumer. So yeah, I think that is valid though, certainly.
Yeah, sorry, it's not a question, but it would be great if we mix between solar power and wind power, all this together. I mean, we need to have some ideas like this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, people have said, well, James's brother had solar panels put on his roof, and it's powering his house, and he's feeding into the national grid, isn't he? So he's actually getting money back at a time when we're paying like £350 a month on energy bills. He's getting money back.
Yeah,
Great.
so as the organization that we're working with do this event series, Meanwood Valley Urban Farm, they were just gifted a set of solar panels, and when they're wired up properly, then they might well be in a similar situation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's
so efficient.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, the field's just moving so incredibly fast. You know, you're getting solar panels that can unroll. You know, it's incredible. You know, like tiny filament sheets, right? That solar panels, and you just stick them onto something.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, we're not going to have problems with that, are we?
No. I was going to say that actually endangered languages in Britain, almost all the languages, the indigenous languages of Britain, are endangered apart from English. So Welsh a bit, Scots Gaelic quite seriously, Irish Gaelic, Cornish has sort of revived, but marginal, Romani, Yiddish. I mean, if you think of all these minority languages in Britain, they're actually pretty much all endangered by English.
Yeah.
Gosh, well, I didn't expect the learning would start so soon.
Yeah. Saeed himself did work on Welsh, didn't you, for your MA?
Yeah, we did some comparison, on Welsh and Mahari,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went to university in Wales, so I want to know better.
You should know about it. Yeah. Saeed, do you want to ask anything?
No, I don't have any question, but it was a nice talk about the you know, I like the music and these things, so it was amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
But perhaps we could later organise a meeting to see what can be done in Oman. with this technology. And I think the three of you on the call, so the two Saids and Hamma, would be interested. At least I hope you would be.
Yeah,
Of course,
like a very interesting project to carry on here. It's just going to be something new to people back here. Nobody has done something like similar to that, as long as I can reckon. One of the questions that I had is like the size of the bike that you guys have made. It's like a tricycle, it seems, and it's kind of a.
Yeah.
I felt like it's huge. So, is there any kind of a way of? I don't know whether you guys have any kind of experience in engineering, like to make it a bit smaller, because I think we would have a trouble if we try to do something like that in Oman in terms of taking it onto the roads, especially maybe Dr. Janet has an idea about the roads back here. So if it is something a bit slimmer than that, then that would be really great. If we could just like reduce the size of it, but with the same quality of the of the standards that you guys have put into that one. Have you ever thought of that?
Oh well, you speaking from our hymn sheet. That's the next thing we're doing. We're doing that now. So
yeah,
Roadblock
we have a
1.5
smaller
is going to be a much.
tricycle.
Sorry.
Just we've got a smaller tricycle that's like more actual bike size. It's still in development. Like we're still figuring out how to attach the motors and the batteries
That's going to be
to it, but it'll be more portable.
Great. We hope to have you again, then give us another speech on that, so that we can get some ideas from you guys and see how your experience goes in that one.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. Tom, I really do think we need to connect these guys with engineering and earth and environment.
Yeah.
What do you think? And
Yeah,
with media
absolutely.
and tech.
Yeah, I
Media
just keep thinking about other places that could get involved. I mean, obviously, we have product design, as I already mentioned, legal and business. I think could support the financial and sort of administrative side of all these kind of things. Yeah, there's so many potential connections, and as has already been said, there just seems to be such a kind of joyful response to the project that I just can't imagine that others just won't want to get involved.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, perhaps one step would be to make contact with people who'd be interested and then have an in-person event at the university. Yeah,
absolutely, let's do it. And this has already been picked up, I think, in the chat, but I have also just put in there, just for the benefit of everybody, that I do have a good friend and colleague, Dave Lynch, who has experience in mobile projection work. He set up a rig that was doing projections from the side of a rickshaw. So he's somebody who's a specialist expert in projection mapping, all sorts of digital installations, and I think he would be somebody who could offer expert advice on how to introduce visual technologies into it as well, if that was something that that Roadblock wanted to do.
Amazing. I think he probably will have trained the two visual artists that we're in touch with, because I think they both did a course at the Uni of. So it's likely that
potentially, yeah. Dave is sort of associated with the University of Leeds, although not actually a member of the academic staff. But he'd certainly be a good person to speak to. I think he would love what it is that you're trying to do, and has a lot of skills that he could bring to the project.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for trusting us enough to put us in contact with people. That means a lot.
No worries at all.
And Hamal, just to go back to it, on the idea of how small it could be, Roadblock is sort of made to be a stage almost, right? So it's got extra fat on it anywhere that it can. So it's as wide as it can be, and it's only limited by the fact that we needed to take it to London, and it needed to fit in the largest civilian drivable truck. So that's the limit on its size. And so it's meant to be big, and it's much easier and better and less silly to make one that's smaller. So it can be, something that fits on top of a desk. It can be something that folds out and doesn't even have a chair attached to it. It can be really, really quite diminutive.
Well, that's great then, because as I said, like that one, was kind of a big, and I was thinking like if we try to take that one into the road in Oman, that wouldn't be possible. But maybe something smaller would be really possible to, you know, take it around here and then have the LCD projected on something else as an LCD for that. I mean, the projector, do you have take along like kind of an LCD with you? And I don't mean by an LCD, like what I mean is like some kind of a screen that you can project the videos on that. Yeah.
But Hamal, you don't need a special screen with this technology that they're developing, because the infrared sensors can just scan the landscape and project on whatever is there. So you could have a film on a camel.
Oh, that's going to be even more interesting. But then that
wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Or on frankincense trees.
Right, but the thing is, like, wonder if we can get all that technology back here in Oman. Like, yes, you know, like technologically, we are kind of really backwards. Maybe we'll just have to import everything from there, from Leeds.
We'll bring the team over.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah,
that would be great.
I think it would be. Yeah,
we can build a couple of suitcases.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting. Yeah, we can try to plan on something on that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be good.
Yes. Maybe as part of one of the future workshops that you might be planning to do back here in Dhofar, or even in our university next time, in Sultan Qaboos University, if that's going to be possible, then we try to plan and bring the people, I mean the team and the technology over here.
That's a really good idea. Yes. Maybe you could plan something for SQU.
Right.
And then we'll have something in Dhofar.
Definitely, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's plan it. Yeah, we'll talk on it, inshallah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should let you go now. It's been really interesting. Thank you so much.